Welcome to Fuji Speedway. Delighted that the rain of the week has passed away and we have a beautiful morning. We've just heard there's a 15-minute delay ahead of the first practice, the first qualifying session here for the Fanatec GT World Challenge Asia. Last weekend it was Suzuka, this weekend Fuji. Two totally contrasting tracks and conditions are absolutely perfect. But we're all set for qualifying, and of course we do it in our inimitable style where the GT4 runners will go out. They'll have two qualifying sessions, the first for driver one, and quite fittingly the second qualifying session will be for the second driver in each of those pairings. And then those sessions are only 15 minutes long, and then just straight after that we have a very short break. It literally runs one into the next. We will then move on to driver one and driver two in the GT3 category. And we've had some changes in the entry list. We've got two new arrivals. We've got DG Motorsport bringing one of the Bmw M2 CSRs that were so popular, and also Legal Top Racing bringing their version in as well. So that they will both be running in the TC Invitation class. What's so good is the ability to see out over the valley and see what's going on down below in Gotemba. And I must say this part of Japan looking absolutely beautiful, but with all the rain we've had the past last week really, stretching through to this, anything on the grass is still going to be a little wet. Quite humid, but certainly far nicer than it is down in the midst of Tokyo, where it's very hot and sticky indeed. Fuji Speedway, 16 turns, moving up and down the mountainside. Of course, we're in the foothills of Mount Fuji here, and it's a good day any day you're at the Fuji Speedway, but any day you can see the hills, the valley below, it's even more special. Well, let's take a look at the circuit. It's a long start-finish straight, dips down towards turn one, and instead of going out onto the old banking that's built into the mountainside, it's a sharp right-hander, a kink at two, and then through the first timing interval, then left-hander at turn three. Turns 4 and 5, you're doubling back on yourself, and then deep behind the paddock you turn into turns 6 and 7, just below a most fantastic circuit restaurant. Then through some fast right-hand kinks, 8, 9, you get down to turn 10, bottom left-hand corner of the shot, and then you start climbing the hill through a chicane that was put in, or an S, a handful of years ago, probably 10, 15 years ago now. And then the final sweep of corners, turns 12, 13, 14, 15 and 16 onto the start-finish straight, and it is super long. And if you can get a good entry out of the final corner onto the start-finish straight, then you really are quids in. Not just for a quick lap, but when it comes to racing, of course, for taking a tilt and overtaking the driver of the car in front. The 2022 Fanatec GT Series for Asia started in Sepang back in May, and victory in the first race, Nick Foster and Prince Jeffrey Ibrahim. Victory in the second race, that was in the 888 JMR Mercedes. In the second race, it was EBM Giga Racing with their Porsche. Earl Bamber, the man himself, the man who runs the team, and Adrian De Silva, they won that. Then at Suzuka, an absolutely brilliant drive in the second half of the first race. Kei Cozzolino didn't really want the slick tyres, but the team, Car Guy Racing said give them a go, and certainly his teammate Takeshi Kimura was very keen, and they came up trumps. Brilliant drive to victory for Kei Cozzolino in wet but drying conditions. Then in the second of the races there, this was history being made, an overall win for a driver pairing from the AM class in GT3. Comet Racing, Honda NSX, Yorikatsu Tsuchiko and Yusuke Yamasaki. Will they be able to do it all over again? They were helped by the weather there and conditions, but I have a feeling we will have some more winners coming here this weekend. But you have to say Nick Foster and Prince Jeffrey Ibrahim with a first, a fifth, a third and a second. Super consistent. They're sitting on a very tidy points lead. But there is another twist in the championship. Sepang, the opening round, first of 6 rounds of the 2022 series, was one thing. It set the show on the road. Then the number of cars trebled when we came to Japan, and that's because Suzuka was the opening round of 4 races in Japan, 4 rounds in Japan, therefore 8 races, of course, for the Japan Cup, a standalone element within the championship. And so Suzuka, Fuji, Sugo, and Okayama are the quartet of circuits that are going to be used in 2022, and that certainly has boosted the field, and it's great to be here. And though the pandemic is still out there and people are fully aware of it, it's just important we go racing again, because certainly the momentum that was built up through 2018 and 2017, 18 and 19 as Blancpain GT Asia as it was back then grew and grew. It's good to get it going again and put the foundation stones in for 2023. If you're looking at the cars on track, they are not the cars that should be running in the GT World Challenge Asia, the Fanatec series. These are for the Asian Ferrari Challenge series. Their session got a little bit delayed because someone had a little bit of an off, and the car needed to be recovered, but they are counting down. They've got 5 minutes remaining in their session. And then the track will be all ours. So first the Gt4 qualifying and then the Gt3 qualifying. 4 sessions. Driver 1, Driver 2 in the Gt4 entries, then Driver 1 and Driver 2 in the serious senior category Gt3, which makes up the bulk of our runners. Looking there at turns sort of 5 into 6. That's going down below the paddock. You can see the Potenza bridge over the circuit in the top. That's showing the level of the start-finish straight, but a beautiful mountainside setting up and down the hillside. And you can be sure that there's always the threat of rain, so Pirelli would have brought truck after truck of rubber. They certainly got through a lot of different sorts of tyres at Suzuka just last weekend. But having looked at my weather app, all is set very fair indeed for this weekend at this most beautiful of circuits. And this weekend we've got plenty of GT4 numbers. Originally this championship was just for GT3 cars. GT4 were introduced. These are 2 categories of cars that have been racing for quite some while now. GT4 is the junior category. You put them at the GT4 version of, let's say, a Mercedes AMG alongside a GT3 version of a Mercedes AMG, and they look like very, very different cars indeed. Things get very serious aerodynamically in the GT3 Challengers. Much larger wings and splitters and aerodynamic aids, and much more performance. But GT4 has grown and grown over the years. In fact, I think next weekend, supporting the Spa 24 Hours, Total Energy Spa 24 Hours at Spa-Francorchamps, no guesses there. The GT4, the European Series, I believe, has 65 starters, a new record there. So 5, 6, 7 years ago, the field was probably going to be more like 25 cars, and that was a good day. So that is how much GT4 has grown around the world. These categories instigated by SRO, the Stefan Rattel organisation that has been behind this growth of GT racing, and of course with all the changes afoot in the World Endurance Championship, with GTE disappearing and GT3 coming in, it's very much built on the success of championships like this. One thing that's changed enormously, if you look at the background of the shot, there's a great big building that wasn't there when I was here last in 2019. It's a new circuit hotel that's being finished. What a place to be high on the roof terrace there, looking down over the second half of the circuit. The fact is, from that top floor, if we can see them, they can see us. So they can see all the way across to turn number 6 and 7, and see them on the climb back up through from turn 10 to turn 16 onto the start-finish straight. So still just waiting the final 2.5 minutes of the Ferrari qualifying session, and then the track will be all ours for Fanatec Asia, 3rd round of the championship. And the 2nd round of the Japan Cup. And Mount Fuji, you can imagine it, it's behind that cloud. That cloud wasn't there first thing this morning, but it is often, it seems to just coalesce around the peak of this most famous lofty volcano. And as I say, any day at the Fuji Speedway is a good day, but any day when you can see that magical volcanic top, it just makes it all the more special. Very green part of Japan here, and you know, the sights are brilliant. And also the passion in the paddock. There are all sorts of support races here this weekend, and I do recall one of the biggest noises about 3 years ago on our visit was there was a local car club race, and the singing was enormous. It was absolutely fantastic, the banging of the drums. And this weekend, I have a new presenter alongside me. I have Amy, who has been dropped in, and I'm just going to find out how Amy's looking ahead to this weekend.
Good morning, Bruce. That was... Oh.
I gave Amy no warning whatsoever.
No
there.
warning at all. I was doing
notes.
my memo notes and everything. Good morning. Weather is amazing. I'm super excited for the race to start. Well, quali first. But
Yeah. Well, the quali builds up towards the race. Good to see people coming this weekend down in Gotemba. Lots of people were already wearing their team shirts this morning to come up here. But this is a circuit that just, when it comes into the sunshine,
nice,
it just grows, doesn't it?
And Fuji Speedway is doing a quite good job with, you know, inviting people to do camping, barbecue alongside the track while watching the race. So that's what we see on screen right now. It's pretty nice, you know. A great weekend. a great start for a very enjoyable race weekend, I guess.
Well, I think so too. So weather-wise, clearly last weekend you were saying how much rain there's been, but
It was pouring all over Japan. It was not only over Suzuka, it was everywhere. I was on a flight flying over Suzuka actually, and it was shaking. It was like a storm, not a typhoon yet, but yes, it was pretty crazy. So unfortunately it hit the first race on Saturday, but Sunday was pretty clear, so that was good. But here, Fuji today looks beautiful. Blue sky, no clouds, amazing.
One of the things about, I mean, the circuits are very, very different. You know, the format of Suzuka, the format of Fuji, but this is a great place for overtaking, isn't it? With a really, really long main straight for the drivers to get a toe along.
We've seen a few, you know, three ways, three sides. Last weekend, I think we will see a lot of them this weekend on the straight. The straight is bright enough that, you know, 3 cars can battle each other, so that's something. And the first corner is a huge breaking point, so that is something which I'm excited to see. A lot of battle there, I guess. And
then you're going to be working up and down the pit lane. You'll be speaking to the drivers and finding out what's really, I think, excellent is if after you go down at the middle of the race and talk to the people when they've come in from the first stint, if you come up and join me in the commentary box, it's just quite nice for you to bring more of that atmosphere. It doesn't always, you know, you have the interview, then sometimes just as soon as you finish, the driver will go and they'll tell you a funny story, or you can see more of the sort of passion. And
yeah, I'll try my best to get all of these informations. I think it will be very hot in the pits, so that's something we need to be careful with. A lot of water, I guess. But yeah, I'm very, very happy that so many Japanese teams are entering this race this weekend. It's amazing to have more than 20 cars, you know, driving along with the regular teams. And there's so many talented Japanese drivers, regular drivers who drive in the Super GT and Super Formula as well. So that's something we should be looking forward to as well. Get some comments from them. If they speak English, I will try it in English. If not, then trust me, my Japanese is good as well. So
I thought it might be.
I can translate it for you.
Sort of useful. But one thing, you just touched on something there, Amy. What people, when they're watching at the circuit or if they're watching at home on television, they never understand how hot it can be in the pit lane because there's so much concrete and the buildings take out the wind. It seems like 5 degrees hotter than someone who might be sitting in the grandstand.
It is. You know, the reflection from the asphalt is pretty hot, I would say. Also, it depends on Fuji Speedway. If the wind is going through the straight, then it's quite okay. It also depends on the sun, which time of the day it is. Right now, you see a shade over the pits, so that would be very, you know, not too bad for me. However, in the afternoon, it will be straight on under the sun. So, yeah, I'll try my best to not sweat too much in front of the screen.
Well, luckily, you know, the race is just an hour long. Of course, Fuji has a lot, and, you know, the Japanese scene has a lot of long-distance races, doesn't it? So that is when you're in that pit lane in the full summer heat, and that's when you really know how fit you are.
Yes.
How good's your fitness program?
Don't ask me. Ever since COVID, I have not been to the gym quite often, but yeah, maybe time to catch up on that. But I would also like to mention the cool suits the drivers are wearing. There are teams who intentionally switch it off for the power. There are drivers who do wear it as well. It's tough to watch them coming out of a boiling car, I would say. It's like you just stepped out of a sauna. It's quite impressive how they're racing in such conditions under this weather. So yeah, everything's going to be on screen this afternoon, I guess.
That's an interesting point about things being turned off just to save the power, because in some classes of racing you can have air conditioning in the car.
You can.
But your engineer would go, you're only the driver. You know, we need more power. That is sucking power that I could, you know, use very helpfully.
I think that's something we hear often. Oh, there's
well, just getting, it looks as though Scala Racing are about to come out. Team Scala, great new livery, bright orange on their Mercedes. So waiting to see when that light at pit exit goes green, that means driver 1 because this is the session for driver number 1, who will set that car's grid position for race 1. That's this afternoon's race. We'll go out. Well, just before the cars go out, Dave Roberts caught up with Seiji Ara, who drives one of the most popular cars in the field, the McLaren. Let's hear what Seiji had to say.
Seiji, it's great to see you at Fuji. The Japan Cup, a brand new competition. How important is it for racing in Japan to see these events happen?
So this is a kind of a world challenge race. So this is good for Japanese driver, and also our team. I was driving with Mr. Yamaguchi. He's a teammate for Japanese Super GT until last year. But he's a Japanese driver, so gentleman driver. So this race is a professional and amateur race, amateur class. So this is good for us, and this category is kind of #1 quickest gentleman driver cup. So this is good for Japanese gentleman driver. So I'm very happy to racing this race. So.
And you come out of Suzuka second in the driver's standings, so it looks like you're enjoying yourself. Yeah, you enjoying this?
I'm very enjoying it. So we have chance to win a championship. So we keep pushing hard and enjoy. I want to enjoy this race.
And how's the car performing out there?
M4 Gt3 is fantastic car. So very fun to drive and also quick. So we push this race.
So that was Seiji Ara talking about the plus with BMW Team Studio entry, the BMW M4 Gt3, and that is a car that's going better and better, the BMW M4. One of the newer cars in GT3. Of course, not every manufacturer brings out their GT3 car in the same year, but that's at the front end of its development cycle. First seen in 2021, but really winning some big races in all sorts of championships around the world this year. And Seiji Ara has so much experience across the years. Right back, he was the VW Cup Japan champion in 1994. And of course, most famously, he's Japan's Le Mans winner from 2004. 10 years later for Audi Sport Japan Team Go with Ronaldo Capello and a certain man called Tom Christensen, who does tend to do rather well at Le Mans. So, but even that is not recent history, is it? 18 years ago. So the GT4 runners sitting at pit exit, ready to go out onto the track, and we've got 7 of those, plus 2 BMW M2 CSRs running in a special invitational class. And one other little twist, we'll come to that with the GT3 session, there is a GTC type of car as well. That's sort of one level below. It's a Porsche 911 GT3 Cup car, and that will be alongside Bingo Racing. That will go out with the GT3 runners, but this is for the GT4s. We've got Mercedes, Toyotas, and the BMWs, and Team Scala are the team that obviously keenest to get out there. They all know once the lights go green, they've got 15 minutes in their qualifying session. Then they'll bring the car back in. There is a short break from there until the start of the following session. The break is 7 minutes, and then their teammates, the number 2 driver in those cars, will go out onto the circuit. 56, one of the new ones this weekend, that's DC Motorsport. Kazuki Ishii and Takashi Kochiya. Obviously only one of them in the car at the time, and Amy was talking about the heat down there, the lovely heat haze. It's lovely for me to say that in an air-conditioned commentary box, but heat haze, again, you always get that with a long shot, and this is clearly a long shot back to pit exits. And one of the things that really impresses me about the Fanatec GT series around the world is the race liveries, and coming particularly to Japan, there's another take, and it's really refreshing to see the different ways that people make their cars look good. But to me, the thing that makes them look best of all is seeing them on the move, and finally the cars going out onto the circuit. Aculand Racing going out second with one of their Toyota GR Supras, and they've got a new driver this weekend. Saito Makio has joined the championship. So even within the Japan Cup, the between last weekend and this, we have driver changes, which just shows sort of strength of the championship and the desire for drivers to come out and compete in this. The Japan Cup is a new element this year. The middle 4 rounds of the 6-round Fanatec GT Asian Series, all in Japan, and there will be a championship for those 4 races, effectively called the Japan Cup, and the level of support shows that it was a very, very good thing to introduce. Very popular indeed, and the drivers might have been thinking last weekend in the pouring rain at Suzuka, what have we done? But here in the bright sunshine at the Fuji Speedway, these cars should be able to be stretched very nicely indeed. So drivers going out on their sighter lap, but with weather conditions like this, it really is a sighter lap. Bring the tyres up, the Pirelli rubber up to temperature, possibly another lap, and then you start really going for it. But in fact, on a day like this, and it's been sunny since about 5 o'clock this morning, little light cloud back then when I woke up, but since then it's been burning away. So track conditions should be very good, but just bear in mind what I said. The grass on the outside is probably still a little bit damp from all the rain from the previous week. So anybody who goes beyond, it might be a little sort of swerve away from the racing surface, but it could actually sort of be your undoing. So the drivers will be aware of that. One of the beauties about the Fuji Speedway, there is a lot of space to go racing, plenty of width. So perfectly fine when it comes to qualifying, but when it comes to racing, there really are many, many options that drivers can take. GTO Racing Team, good to have them still involved in the championship, and lovely metallic blue Mercedes there. Yuki Kusunoki's team based here in Japan. In fact, a lot of teams based just down the side slopes, down between the circuit here at Fuji Speedway and Gotemba, so that they can easily pop up the hill for a bit of testing. So everybody completing their outlap. We've got all 8 runners, 6 cars in the GT4 category, and those 2 invitation class BMW M2 CSRs, great looking compact little cars. And by dint of the fact it was the first car onto the circuit, Team Scala's orange Mercedes should be the first one to set a flying lap. That's car number 55. Yun Shishiro. But the Akiland Toyota tucked in right behind him, with Masayoshi Oyama at the wheel. That's car number 71. And also, it's good to see what's happened in GT racing over the past decades. It used to be to preserve drivers probably in their 40s, some a little older and a few in their 30s, but after a while we started getting single-seater converts, drivers who got even to Formula 2 level, but a lot of Formula 3 drivers realised they didn't have the money or possibly, the brakes that they required, and they moved across to be the pro alongside an AM driver, and the average age in GT racing has fallen and fallen. That said, I do notice that Masayoshi Oyama in that number 71 Toyota was born in 1965, respectable in my eyes, but a lot of drivers taking part next weekend in the Total Energy Spa 24 Hours are drivers born in as late as 2005. Get that, 17-year-olds out to play. So GT racing, no wonder it keeps growing. So the first times on the board, 1 minute 54.4 from Jun Toshiro, and then suddenly up to the top with a 1 minute 53.6. Goes the number 33 D-Station Racing entry from just down the side slopes here. And that's Hiroaki Hitano, who goes to the top of the charts by 0.8 of a second precisely. But look, the clock is counting down. Only 10.5 minutes remain. So out lap, first flying lap. Let's see what the second flying lap will do. And certainly already Hiroaki Hitano is looking good to improve in that D-Station entry. Car number 33, another great livery with the polka dots atop it. That's Team GMB Mercedes, Hiroaki Hitano, fastest of all. But he's improved in the first sector, he's improved in the second sector, so maybe we'll get down to the low 1 minute 53s, but we'll find out very shortly. As Hiroaki Hitano waits to complete his second flying lap. He's the low part of the circuit, picking his way up the slope. Great big long prow on those Mercedes AMGs. And obviously compared to the GT3 version, the rear wing is much less obvious. It's a clear rear wing, but again, these are the smaller cars. And another person who's really starting to fly, car number 55, Juntashiro. That's the Team Scala Mercedes, the one that was first out of pit exit. There it is, bright orange. Great racing colour. Looks brilliant in the sunshine, looks brilliant even on a dull day. But Juntashiro, well, the new target is to get into the low 1:52s, because suddenly car number 14 goes to the top of the charts. That's Brian Lee, but he immediately gets enormously bettered, because Toshiro and Oyama have moved the target to the 1:48 now. So Yun Toshiro, car number 55, the Team Scala Mercedes. So that, as I said, do an outlap, do a banker that, but the way the heat's got in the tyres, the fact they were finding suddenly just 3 seconds, 2.5, 3 seconds, that is why the number 55 Team Scala Mercedes is at the top of the pile. But wait for Brian Lee to come round another time. Car number 14, that was the one that fleetingly went to the top. The GTO Racing Team Mercedes, that was the one we saw in that metallic blue race livery. Oh, Hiroaki Hatano is starting to cut the corners, shorten the lap, kicking up the dirt. And Jun Toshiro, look at him on our screens, going faster still, sets the fastest first sector of anyone. Ooh, not such a good middle sector. Maybe he's backing out a bit, because in fact he's about half a second down on where he could be in that middle sector. No, he's not too bad actually. It's all right, I beg your pardon. He's down by about 0.2 of a second. Now, what can Akilan Racing do? Second fastest at the moment, Masayoshi Oyama. He's down by just over a second, and I must say the way that Yun Toshiro is pushing number 55 Team Scala Mercedes, he's going right to the edge of the circuit, trying to stay within the white lines, because of course track limits the words we talk about rather too much at the moment. But I think he's fine. He hasn't transgressed by putting all 4 wheels over the outside line of the circuit there. He's perfectly within his rights. He's got the left-hand 2 wheels just out over the edge, which is what you need to do to get the best of the final corner of the lap. 1:48.791 seconds. Will he improve on that? No, he won't, but not a bad lap. Oh gosh, he was actually very close. He was down by, get this, he was down by 14 thousandths of a second, so very near identical time. His second of the 3 sectors was the one that let him down there. Now the corner that we're seeing now, turn 3, apparently yesterday in practice, literally every driver, oh, well, there we go, was warned at turn 3 for exceeding track limits, and by I think the painting on the outside of his left-hand wheels was just within the white line. So again, the fastest driver going right to the edge and very nearly beyond, because it's a natural thing to do, push as hard as you possibly can, but really clear example. So turn 3, think about it, you've gone through the first turn, that dipping right-hand hairpin, it's a little right-hand kink, and then great big bank of earth ahead of you, trees and the circuit restaurant in front of you up high. You have to turn in through the fast left-hander at turn 3, and you can see how tempting it is to run deep into that corner. But you are being watched. Race control was fully manned when I went down there earlier. They will definitely be looking there. There are certain corners, and all the drivers having been warned, they know what's coming their way. Just looking for any changes in this chart. Well, Brian Lee did improve. He's moved up to 3rd place, but it's still the Mercedes, number 55 from Team Scala. Showed their intent by being first to leave the pit lane. 1.069 seconds to good. Over Masayoshi Oyama, Brian Lee, 3rd fastest. Brian from Taiwan, been a fervent supporter of this championship since 2017, and raced all sorts of cars across the years. And our fastest driver comes into the pits, thinks he's done enough. Well, I'd say if you're sitting on an advantage with 5 minutes or so remaining, a clear second, you're laughing. In fact, the only improvements are really coming from those who are a bit slow to get going. Akilan Racing Toyota also enters the pit lane. So Brian Lee, number 14, that's GTO Racing Team. Pushing on, how's his first sector? No improvement. Second sector, no improvement. Does improve in the final sector, but half a second down on his best. So I really think it took about a lap to get the tyres up to temperature. Decent temperature. Second flying lap was where they struck, and really those that were on the money haven't managed to improve, and they're saving their tyre life. And of course, if they come in with just a 7-minute gap between the first section and the second session, then it gives more time for the team to set the car up for their teammate to do the second run, which of course defines the grid for the second race, the Sunday race. But here right now, we're trying to sort the grid for the GT4 runners for this afternoon's race here at Fuji Speedway. Number 56 entering the pit lane, that's DG Motorsport BMW, and the other one we're looking at on the screen, that's Legal Top Racing. Yuki Takahashi, he is down in 7th position overall, and he's sharing with fellow handicap driver Takuma Aoki, who's raced all around the world, but obviously they will be competing on an even basis, but the big problem for them is not what happens in the car, it's getting in and out of the car, because of course we have the driver change during the race. And it isn't as easy for them, so what they make up on the track, they will probably lose a fair bit of that during the driver change midway through both the races, this afternoon's and tomorrow's. Right, who is making the moves? Koshido Racing Toyota, car number 12, is now up into 4th position, improved last time around, but 2 and a bit seconds, 2.1 seconds down on that really brilliant lap, under 1 minute 49 from Jun Toshiro. But this is Motoharu Sato. He's good for 4th, but he's going to have to find nearly half a second if he wants to move up to 3rd ahead of Brian Lee. Half the field are in the pits at the moment. And I must say that I think the 55 Team Scala Mercedes and the 71 Akeland Racing Toyota Supra will probably stay in the pits and just prepare for the second qualifying session, which comes up very soon after this one. Right, it's looking very good from Sato here. He's improved in the first sector, he's improved in the second sector. But his target has moved on because Brian Lee improved last time around. He's now good still good in 3rd position. Needs to find another 1/3 of a second. He might even topple Oyama from Akeland Racing. His Toyota's in 2nd position at the moment. Brian Lee is closing in, and so too is this number 12, the bright red Koshido Racing Toyota with Motoharu Sato. Doesn't make an improvement on that lap. He didn't do such a brilliant final section. I think what we're finding now is that they've got to the sweet spot on their tyres and sort of gone out beyond there, but they're trying to get the driver in the sweet spot in so many ways. Brian Lee improving again in 3rd place at the start of this lap. Middle sector of the lap, not so good. 3rd sector of the lap, the twisty uphill sector. It starts just before you get to turn 10 and you arc your way through the right hand of the left hander, the right hand of the left hander, and so on, up the hill until you turn onto the start-finish straight. Masaki Fujii is the slowest of all the drivers at the moment. This is Comet Racing. They run, obviously, a Honda NSX in the top class in GT3, but also this Mercedes. Masaki Fujii is coming into the pit lane, so he won't improve. He brings up the rear of the class. It's very nearly 5 seconds down on the ultimate pace, but a very, very good ultimate pace it is. Car number 55. The Mercedes from Team Scala. Certainly Jun Toshiro did an absolutely fantastic job. 1 minute 48.791 seconds, as you can see, 1.1 seconds or thereabouts to the good. Brian Lee does not improve in 3rd place overall, but not for want of trying, and the person who did improve, car number 12, the one we're looking at, the bright red Koshido Racing Toyota, that certainly went better last time around, but still in 4th place. Motoharu Sato pushing on very hard indeed, but not finding the answers. 10 seconds to go, and the checkered flag will be out, but really from that second flying lap from Jun Toshiro that took him a 1 minute 52 down to 1 minute 48.791 seconds. That was the job done, just over a second to the good. Any late improvements? Car number 14, that's Brian Lee, still in 3rd place, doesn't improve in the first sector, doesn't improve in the second one, so will probably not even bother taking the checkered flag. He will probably dive into pit lane. Might as well save a little bit of tyre life if you possibly can. But GTO Racing team, Brian Lee and Hideto Yasuoka. Good driver pairing. And don't forget, it's a race for 2 drivers, so it's as much about having a good driver pairing rather than necessarily having the fastest out-and-out driver. And for all these teams, of course, they have a mandatory pit window in the 1 hour race between 25 minutes into the race and 35 minutes, that 10-minute segment in which they must make their pit stops. And we all know that pit stops can be the undoing of even a very good initial run or a good follow-up run. But in the case of weather changes, and if you look at the first race we had at Suzuka last weekend, when the weather's changing all the time, an inspired choice of tyres and a tyre change in a pit stop can be all the difference. Just ask Kei Cozzolino. Bold decision from Car Guy Racing, but it really, really worked for them. So at the end of that session, the last few cars just peeling in, the checkered flag has long been down. It's Mercedes at the top. It's Jun Toshiro for Team Scala, the bright orange Mercedes. Second place, a different manufacturer, Masayoshi Oyama, Akiran Racing in the Toyota, and another Mercedes in third place at the end. There's Yun Takahashi just being last to the finish, to cross the finish line. Does actually improve on that final lap, so that was a good lap from him, but he stays in penultimate position of all the cars. Another 1/10 of a second and he could have toppled the 33 entry, the Team GMB Mercedes, but he didn't, but he pushed on to the end. But it was really a story of car number 55 dominating from the second, Jun Toshiro. First driver out of the pits, very good first flying lap, and a far, far better second flying lap. And that was that, the job was done. The clock carries on, of course, so the 7-minute gap is from when the checkered flag came out, which is about 2 minutes ago. So we've only got 5 minutes until the cars go back onto the circuits, and the drivers will be able to report back to their teammates and say, you know what, you've got 3 laps when your tyres are really, really good. Do you want to do it when it's very busy, or do you want to do it when it's less busy? Well, Jun Toshiro there, fastest by 1.069 seconds. That's a big, big margin for the Team Scala Mercedes over Akilan Racing's Toyota Supra, which is running in the AM class. I ought to explain, you've got GT4 Silver AM and GT4 AM, so that's with a less experienced driver lineup. And Brian Lee, third place in another Mercedes. And then the 2 invitation class BMWs, so the M2 CSRs in 5th, that's DG Motorsport, and Legal Top Racing in 7th position overall. But that was a very impressive session, particularly if your name was Jun Toshiro. Jun will be down in the pit lane, just passing over the knowledge of what he learned to his teammate, and hoping that he too can, that would be Tatsuya Tanegawa, can take that knowledge and try and get them pole for tomorrow's race as well. But we know the driver that will be starting first in the GT4 class this afternoon will be Jun Toshiro for Team Scala. That was super, super impressive. It's still a lovely day at Fuji Speedway. Just notice the clouds are starting to change colour a little bit and come down the mountainside. So not quite as bright as it was earlier, but I do feel they're fair weather clouds and may well move over. Might just keep the temperatures down a little bit in the pit lane. Yeah, the famous volcano has disappeared behind its fairly regular cap. Top right-hand side of the screen is where we ought to be seeing it. And again, a chance to see the super, super long start-finish straight. This high shot from turn 1, you can't even see turn 16 because there's a crest just under the bridge with the starting lights on it. And the track drops away. So when you go through the final corner, it rises and rises and rises till you get to the midway point of the start-finish straight. And then it starts to gradually fall and then slightly faster the drop as you approach turn 1. So drivers in the pit lane. Right, race qualifying 2 will start at 10:17. That's good news because that's 2 minutes from now. Gosh, weather does appear to be changing by the moment outside, but I think it's a fairly regular thing. But from first thing this morning, super, super bright and glorious at Fuji, this part of Japan, to the west of Tokyo. I must say the air felt a little bit cooler and fresher than it did in the city centre. And here is Takuma Aoki. And he obviously is the driver in the wheelchair, but he's done great things in his career. A motorcycle racer. And has taken to cars with style, but obviously the cars take a bit of adaptation with hand controls and things, a hand throttle, hand brake. But Takuma's been racing a lot of cars converted for him to race in, and again, fantastic bit of engineering. Let's see how he can get on. Takuma, just to let you know, is in one of the touring car invitation class BMW M2 CSRs. That's car number 101 from Legal Top Racing, which is white and largely with those BMW 2 shades of blue and red flashes up the side of the car. That's very similar to the flashes on top of Takuma's helmet there. So the machinations of how Takuma gets in the car without losing much time. It's something, you know, we normally see drivers and teams practicing in pit stops, but obviously this is a little more technical. But the good thing is that there's a generous minimum time you're allowed in the pit lane. If you have to be in the pit lane from pit entry to pit exit in a certain amount of time, which I believe is 125 seconds, so 2 minutes and 5 seconds. But it may well take them longer. So of course his teammate will have a big role to play here. That's Yuki Takahashi, and he'll be very much part of Yuji will be very much part of the show here, trying to help his teammate out. And then of course tomorrow, in the other race, Takuma Aoki, the driver in the wheelchair, will be the one that starts the race. He'll be brought out and put into his wheelchair before the driver change is done. But we're underway all over again. 3 Mercedes and Toyota going out. Of course, there's 8 cars in this session. They shouldn't have the excuse of tripping over another driver. So those cars need to just space themselves out a little bit. And will it be 2 poles in 2 sessions for the number 55 Team Scala Mercedes? Let's wait and see. The driver who's taken over is Tetsuya Tanigawa. Plenty of experience. He was in the Asian Le Mans series back in 2014. He was the GT class champion for Team AAI. But GT Racing has moved on a long way since then, and particularly in Japan. Of course, they've got their own really strong Super GT series. GT 500 is the top class, GT 300 is the junior class, and other classes as well. Shinya Hosokawa, Team GMB, the drivers out there on the circuit at the moment. Car number 33, it's a black Mercedes. Saw that with the white spots on its bonnet. And Shinya, he's sort of a driver in the middle-age range of GT drivers, 41 years old now. Started in Japanese Formula 3, actually raced in British Formula 3 for a year, 2012. Then he moved into GT racing in 2004. It's been his spiritual home ever since. So just remember that target time. Well, in fact, it's a whole new target time, because what went on in the first qualifying session is irrelevant. That was setting the grid for this afternoon's race, but this grid is for the second race. It's for the Sunday race. Driver 2 is the qualifying position for that. So a few cars a little later out onto the circuit. The GTO Racing Team Mercedes in its metallic blue, snaking away as the power is put down. Just a little heat in the tyres. Of course, don't speed too soon until you've left the pit lane, but that's going out. Brian Lee drove it in the first session. Hideto Yasuoka driving in this second of the 2 qualifying sessions. Of course, that car is livery aping the Mercedes Formula 1 car with Petronas sponsorships, with that sort of aquamarine colour on the turquoise, if you will, on the wing mirrors over the black and white livery. Just waiting to see who will put the first lap in. Just remember, the first flying lap for even the quickest of the drivers in qualifying session number 1 was about a 1 minute 53. I think we had one just into the 1 minute 52s, but they got down below that to 1 minute 48.9, so plenty of scope to improve. very nicely, keeping it between the white lines, which is the aim of the game. Any time you get all four wheels beyond the white lines marking the edge of the circuit, then if you're spotted, and you will be spotted, then there will be warnings, and if you repeat it too many times, then your times start to be eliminated in qualifying. Admittedly, with the qualifying session of only 15 minutes, you shouldn't be transgressing too many times. Let's wait and see what's the first flying lap going to be on the board. It will be Shinya Hosokawa, Team GMB, the 33 Mercedes. The one start-finish straight takes an age to get to the finish line there. 151.493 seconds for Shinya Hosokawa. The clock appeared to be running after he crossed the finish line. Quite in sync, but 1 minute 50.732. So Team Scala went to the top immediately in the first session. They've done it again. It's Tetsuya Tanegawa at the wheel. 1 minute 50.7 seconds versus 1 minute 51.4 for Shinya Hosokawa. Looking at Hosokawa's car again, he's starting to pick up the pace, but the driver who's really on the move is number 55, the Team Scala Mercedes, because very, very quick opening sector for the driver on board that. He's gone through the second sector in an improved time as well. He should be going below 1 minute 50, should be into the 1 minute 49s. So look out for the bright orange Mercedes. There it is in the middle of the shot. 2/3 of the way around the circuit. Tatsuya really starting to wind it up. So he's waiting for him to complete his lap. 1 minute 50.732. Tatsuya Tanegawa didn't go below the marker. Wow, plenty of understeer for him there. So he's working his tyres very, very hard indeed as he gets towards the end of the lap. Just coming up the hill through turn 14, 15, and then into turn 16. It goes on and on. Look how he's taken half a second off in the first sector, nearly 1.3 seconds off in the second sector. So in fact, he could be into the 1 minute 48s. Engine absolutely right on the rev limiter there. Accelerating hard up through the gears, past the pits. Again, just that coming to a crest. You can see it's still rising in front of the big grandstand. Flashes past my commentary position. 1 minute 49.397. Actually, I thought the end of the lap would have been a bit quicker than that. Now, what are we going to get by way of answer? The driver who's starting to come into the mix is one of the drivers in one of those two Bmw M2s up into second place. Takashi Kochiya, 1 minute 50.9. But that then falls away because we looked at him earlier in the session, but number 12 goes right to the top of the pile. Really impressive. Didn't see that coming too much. Yogibo Racing, the number 12, the red Supra, because Katsuyuki Hironaka, 1 minute 47.596. He's 1.8 seconds to good. Car number 12, there he is. Bright and quick across your screen. I'd suggest the track is getting faster, and how low can they go? Because already Hironaka has improved in the first sector on this lap. The car looking very, very positive. The driver putting it where he needs to, and actually you can really see him working that car, working the tyres. If anything, he might be about to trip up over the rear of Shinya Hosokawa's Mercedes. That's the black one in front of him, which at the moment has a best of 1 minute 51.493. Well, it's getting best part of 4 seconds slower, even with its best lap. So certainly Hironaka has pushed very, very hard for Yogibo Racing. Doesn't want to trip up. He's got the last few corners of this lap to navigate without tripping over. In fact, it's the GTO. Sorry, I misidentified. It's the GTO Racing Mercedes that's up in front. I thought it was the number 33 car. It looked dark with the sun behind it. The improvement in the first sector and no improvement in the middle sector, and maybe Hironaka's going to back off a little bit in that number 12 Toyota. Is he about to come into the pits? Yes, he's entering the pit lane. So he's sitting on a margin of 1.6 seconds. That is a very, very pleasing one indeed. 2 drivers like the first session, 2 drivers below 1 minute 50. I do think we're going to get some others beneath it. The next closest 1 minute 50.77. Haven't talked too much about Akidan Racing in this second session because Makio Sato, new driver in that team, has taken a short while to get up to speed, but Saito is now up into 3rd place overall. He's the next closest to 1 minute 50. So Makio Sato pushing on indeed. Car number 33. Shinya Hosokawa. Sorry, now we're looking. Sorry, car number 55. Team Scala. Beg your pardon. That's Tatsuya Tanigawa in second place. So he gained a tiny bit in the first of the three sectors, just 24 thousandths of a second, then lost 3/4 of a second and more in the middle sector. So it's about, as your tyres go past a certain heat point, in either slowing down, cooling them off a little bit, and then attacking again, but harder to get purple sectors, which is fastest of anybody in all three sectors at the moment. It's better earlier on, about 5 minutes into the session, but we've nearly had 10 minutes of this 15-minute session, and it's still by 1.7 seconds. Car number 12, Bushido Racing's Toyota, top of the pile. So it's like that curse when you're sitting on the banking and you think, I'll put a stopwatch on that driver. You take a look at a driver and they decide to come into the pit lane. I think for a lot of the drivers now, they've probably taken out of their cars what they possibly can. We've got Hironaka, car number 12, 1 minute 47.596 seconds, nearly 1.7 seconds ahead of Tatsuya Tanigawa. BMW 101 from Legal Top Racing, one of the two new entries this weekend, just keeping out of the way there. And that's Takuma Aoki. This is the driver we saw sitting in the wheelchair, who's raced all around the world since his injuries. And what's his best time? He's quite some way off the pace as he gets used to this car. He's actually far more used to racing prototypes across the years. But finding his form in that car, he's picking up the pace, but he's north of 2 minutes. So he's 16 seconds off the pace. Comet Racing. Of course, they've got this grey livery with a white writing on it on their Honda NSX. That's car number 7. But in the GT4 class, it's Kazuhiro Sakai at the wheel of their Mercedes. Just looking for improvements, and we've suddenly got one because car number 14 has moved below 1 minute 50 as well. That's been a bit of a sleeper. And car 14 is the GTO Racing Team Mercedes. We saw that in its metallic blue livery. It's just half a second down on Tatsuya Tanigawa now, so it's Toyota, Mercedes. And car number 71 is also a Toyota. So we've got two Toyotas bookending the top four. And Takuma Aoki, now a much slower second lap there. We just saw him in that BMW. Car number 4, which is Kazuhiro Sakai, coming down the start-finish straight. Is he going to improve his time? Yeah, quite possibly. He's at the moment 3.5 seconds off the ultimate pace. If he can shave with a half second, that should, in fact, a fifth of a second, he'd move up one position. Can he do it? No, he can't. He's very close to his best, but no improvement. A lot of drivers really struggling in the third and final sector. That's the run up the hill from turn number 10 all the way onto the start-finish straight. And if you just don't have a car that wants to turn in as you want it to, then of course that's where you really are starting to struggle. And if anybody's watching around the world and they've never been to Fuji Speedway, of course that would be many of you. It's a brilliant place to come racing, but it has serious vertical drop. If you started walking from the circuit entry gate, fabulous looking circuit entry gate at the bottom of the slope, down below the paddock, you would really feel it in your calves before you'd made it up, even to paddock level. So session coming to end in, well, as you can see, 2 minutes and 40 seconds. And just looking for any further improvements. If they come from anywhere, I fancy they're going to come from the driver who is obviously not in the pits. We've got 4 of the 8 runners in the pits at the moment, including Takuma Aoki, so he did very few laps of his run in that BMW. That's the Legal Top Racing entry, car 101. But just keep an eye on car number 14, the metallic blue GTO Racing Team Mercedes, because first sector, so don't keep an eye on it. As I say that, he doesn't have such a good lap. His first sector is no improvement, nor is his second. So he may be coming in. So maybe his best shot was that lap of 1 minute 49.5. Just 0.3 of a second down on Tatsuya Tanigawa, but he's still 1.6 seconds down on Hironaka, car number 12, Bushido Racing Toyota, Katsuyuki Hironaka. Fantastic job done by him. And Katsuki, a driver who did a lot of racing in Formula 3, raced in Europe 2004. And then he decided to do Formula Nippon over here in Super GT from 2005. Came back home, and he's been in GT racing pretty much ever since, and showing great class. So Taku Aoki out of the car, back into his wheelchair, so he'll be reporting on what he felt. But you know, there's a lot for the team to work out about how to get those pit stops as efficient as they possibly could be. So real sort of a lot of experience and knowledge there is going to have to be pushed across from Takuma to the team. So we have, theoretically, I'm just having a look at the timing screens, just 2 cars still out on the track, and as you can see, we're into the final minute of qualifying, so we're pretty much done. And the driver who actually, one of the 2 out there, is one of the few drivers who's improving. His best lap was last time around, and it's Shinya Hosokawa, car 33. That's the car we saw right at the start of the session, the black one with the white spots on its bonnet. It's Team GMB Mercedes. And he may yet improve further. He can find a third of a second. He'll move ahead of the number 4 Comet Racing Mercedes, and is still trying to do that. In fact, that Comet Racing Mercedes is the only other car out there. However, in the world of larger, meaning-looking machines, I can see the garages for the GT3 entries are very busy places indeed, because their session will be starting in 7 minutes' time from now. So just waiting for those last 2 runners out on the circuit. The Comet Racing Mercedes, car number 4, and 33 Team GMB Mercedes to come in. They can sort of, the checkered flag is out, and the car coming into shot has got the indicator on, so that's not going to take the flag by the looks of things in the pit lane. They're turning into the pit, so I think that is that. So in that first session, Team Scala took pole for the GT4 category in this afternoon's race, and in the second session, car number 12. Driven very well indeed, the Kushido Racing Toyota GR Supra for Katsuki Hironaka takes pole. For both those sessions, it was by quite a margin. It was nearly 1.1 seconds in the first session, and 1.6 in this second session. So some really good drivers out there doing some very good things at the top of the class. And now the clock will carry on moving around, and of course, we'll get to the GT3 runners, then we'll see who can come out and take pole position for this afternoon's race, and then we'll have another session, and we'll see who can take pole for tomorrow's race. Just to let you know, we've had a real spread of drivers taking pole this year. Naoki Yokomizo for Yogibo Racing, great-looking Ferrari. He's had, let's just take a look at the timing on the screen. As you can see, a clear advantage, 1 and 2/3 seconds is the margin, with the Kushido Racing Toyota at the top of the pile, ahead of the Team Scala Mercedes and the GTO Racing Team Mercedes. And a good run from DG Motorsport to get 5th fastest in their BMW M2 CSR. New to the championship this weekend, and settling in very nicely, GT Motorsport. And that was Takashi Kochiya who set that time. So very close in the middle, but a really big advantage at the top of the class for Kushido Racing in the second of these 2 qualifying runs. Less and less volcano, more and more cloud. Well, this is how it shook out at the start of that second qualifying session for the GT4 runners. First 4 cars went out on track, 3 Mercedes and a Toyota Supra. And it was the Supra at the back of the pack, car number 12, that ended up fastest of all for Kushido Racing. Others pushed on as hard as they can, and of course with just 8 cars in this GT4 category, there was plenty of space for the drivers to go around and achieve their own times without being interrupted by any of their rivals. Comet Racing's entry car number 4, Sakai driving in the second session. Team GMB, and Mercedes pushing on with Shinya Hosokawa. He was to end up down the charts. Car 55, Tatsuya Tanigawa was always in the mix, but as soon as those first flying laps went on the board, it looked good. Team Scala, maybe 2 poles in GT4, but then Akidan Racing started to strike. Kushido Racing, we're on Toyota team there. And at the end, it was a very, very impressive run from the driver, Katsuki Hironaka, that number 12 car. And there was nothing the Mercedes crews could do about it. They had a Mercedes pole in GT4, but not in the second qualifying session. This is with Takuma Aoki, had to be helped from his wheelchair into the car, went out in the BMW M2 CSR, painted by Legal Top Racing, got accustomed to it, and we'll see how he gets on in the race. But really, it was all about Yogibo Racing and the number 12 Toyota Supra. 1.679 seconds to the good. Job very, very well done by Katsuki Hironaka. Been racing a long time now, 40 years old now, and you can see those years of experience shining out. Comet Racing pushed as hard as they can as well, but it wasn't to be for them with their number 4 Mercedes. That ended up down in 6th out of the 8 runners in the GT4 class. But really, it was a masterclass from Yogibo Racing. That is a big, big margin. But conditions absolutely perfect for the drivers here, late morning, or mid-morning, at Fuji Speedway. And Yogibo were fastest in practice yesterday, so they built on firm foundations. Very, very good indeed for the drivers. But GT4 is done and dusted as far as qualifying is concerned, and the clock will soon count down until the GT3 runners come out to play. And again, we'll have driver 1 doing the first of the 15-minute sessions, and driver 2 doing the second session, which will define the front-running cars in their grid positions for tomorrow afternoon's race. So, wonderful conditions here. Beautiful to see the volcano this morning, and fans just starting to come into the circuit. We've got plenty happening here on the Saturday, but tomorrow's the big day. But we've got racing here this afternoon, and a driver or a team that really fancies its chances has to be Car Guy Racing. Took one of the 2 wins in very tricky conditions, and the driver on the left speaking to the radio was the driver that completed that. That's Kei Cozzolino, who has raced for so long and knows these circuits so well, but also, of course, anybody who races on a regular basis in Japan has to be good when the weather is less than special. They have to understand what it is like when things are fully wet, and it's always been one of the great features of Japanese racers when they come and race anywhere in the world. If it rains, it's almost like they come into a class of their own, because, as I say, we have rain in Europe, but nothing like the rain when it comes down here in Japan. Doesn't look as though we'll get rain today, though. That's good. I think everybody's looking forward to dry conditions. And then we'll see who could take those pole positions. As I was starting to say, Yogibo Racing with their Ferrari have had 2 of the 4 pole positions so far. Kei Cozzolino, we just saw him in the pit lane. He took pole for the second of the races. That was at Suzuka last weekend. The other one was Earl Bamber, took the second of the qualifying sessions at Sepang back in the 3rd weekend of May. Earl, Le Mans winner, not here this weekend, but his cars certainly are, so always involved in the Asian Racing Series. So just waiting for the cars to decide who's going to be first to pit exit to go out and see if they can get clear track, because a greater number of cars coming out to play in that, probably double the number. And just to point out that we've had a real spread of manufacturers winning. Mercedes in the first race of the opening round, Porsche in the second race of the opening round, moved to Suzuka, Ferrari in the first race, and Honda in the second. So that's not too bad. 4 races, 4 manufacturers having a go at winning. Just to let you know, I just updated the figures before I came here, that so far across, since the start of 2017, the first ever race in what was Blancpain GT Asia, which was the forerunner of the Fanatec GT World Challenge Asia, back in 2017 was won by an Audi. Audi have won 8 of the races to be the second most successful manufacturer, but 14 for Mercedes puts them well clear. Porsche on 7, a third, Ferrari 5 in 4th, Lamborghini 4, a 5th, and Honda with that win last time out in the second round, the AM drivers winning for Comet Racing. That's the mix of manufacturers. So Mercedes have very much got their nose in front. Just in terms of drivers. In fact, Prince Jeffrey Ibrahim's name's on the roof, along with Nick Foster. Nick Foster is one of a handful of drivers. 9 drivers have got 3 wins to their name. So Nick leading the championship with Prince Jeffrey Ibrahim from Johor has a chance to become the leading overall race winner in the Fanatec GT series. here this weekend. It's one of his targets. His main target, of course, is to win two things. It's to win the overall championship and, you know, effectively across the runs for the Japan Cup as well. There's another title there to be considered. But it's time to go. It's time to go qualifying again. Same format as it is for the GT4 runners. Now we have the GT3 runners and that one car from GTC, the GT Cup class car. That's Bingo Racing. Banksy will be driving that in the first session. 15 minutes. Driver 1 does this qualifying session. The first session, that will set the grid for this afternoon's race. And then qualifying session number 2, after a 7-minute hiatus, will be exactly the same. Another 15 minutes of running. And we'll see if the order gets rejigged for them as well. So just waiting for the start signal. Honda at the pit exit, therefore Comet Racing, number 7. And the number 60 Ferrari LM Corsa, biding their time, keeping the car in the shade. Obviously you don't want it in the fast lane of the pits, that would make it rather hot. But we've got Aston Martin second in that run of cars, waiting to go out and hit the circuit. And then a Porsche in behind, a McLaren in behind again, just emphasizing the spread of manufacturers across the field. So it should be Satoshi Hoshino in the D station Aston Martin. It's car number 47 that's running second in the line. It should be in car number 7. It should be starting Yusuke Yamasaki, I think, should be at the wheel of that. Wait and see as they pour out onto the circuit. Yeah, it should be Yusuke Yamasaki in the Comet Racing Honda NSX. And that Comet Racing NSX, both its drivers are bronze in ranking. That's why they're running in the AM class. But they took that outright win in the second of 2 races at Suzuka. So we've seen that the very, very fastest of the runners in the GT4 class can lap in 1 minute 47.9. What can this grouping get down to? Car number 19, refueling ambitions. Lamborghini, entered by BMAX Engineering, famous for running cars, of course, particularly in single-seater championships, but they're spreading their wings year on year as well here. Should be Hiroshi Hamaguchi, who's been racing under the FFF Racing Team aegis for a very, very long time, all around the world. He's showing with Mineki Okura. Only Lamborghini in the field. You sort of expect more. Certainly the European racing scene, the North American racing scene has many, many more. But the long-time users in this series, in Fanatec Asia, of Lamborghinis, AMAC Motorsport, that's Andrew McPherson and Ben Porter, they moved across this year. They shocked everyone by turning up in a Porsche, so we'll get used to them in that. But they've been a long-time Lamborghini runners over the years, and Huracans. And back at the queue, pretty much, Car Guy Racing, Takeshi Kimura, coming out onto the circuit. His teammate Kei Cozzolino, the star in the wet, Suzuka, will be doing qualifying session number 2. First car already onto its first flying lap, just flashed past the start-finish line. That was the Honda from Yusuke Yamasaki from Comet Racing. Yogibo Racing, this car was damaged, rear end damaged. I'm not sure about the engine mountings, and they had a look and had a think, and it's a whole new car for this weekend at Fuji Speedway. Yogibo Racing, and of course they have been going very well. They're running in the Silver Cup class, so not the top class. They're in GT3, but then the Silver Cup class of GT3. They had 2 class wins in the opening round. That's Sepang. That certainly got some good points on the board for them. Triple eight JMR, Triple Eight entered by Triple Racing, Race Engineering. That's Prince Abu Bakr Ibrahim, sharing with Jasmine Jafar. That's one of the 2 cars from the team. The other one is Nick Foster and his brother, Prince Jeffrey Ibrahim. They're the championship leaders. But that first flying lap on the board had the out lap, and now this flying lap coming close to being completed, and waiting to see how fast it is going to be. What is that time going to be on the board? Comet Racing, car number 7, Yuzuki Yamasaki, just coming through turn 16, we're running out wide to the curbing. Oh, actually, it doesn't even go out to the white line on the outside, so he's got space in hand as he comes out of that final corner. Again, it just shows what a long straight it is. You get a moment when the cars don't look too fast, but trust me, they're absolutely flat out. Should be flashing past my window, does that just now. So what's the time on the board? 1 minute 48.900. Don't worry, that is going to be absolutely shattered. That is a pace of the very best GT4 runners. That's more like it. D-Station Racing, bam, 1 minute 43.4. A whole lot faster. 1 minute 44 by 99 entry. That's Prince Abdul Rahman, Jeffrey Ibrahim. 1 minute 43.3, so he's just on top by 0.040 of a second. Much, much closer in GT3. So it's Mercedes on top from the Aston Martin car number 47 from D-Station Racing. Third place is the second of the 888 Racing Mercedes, and then at the moment, but hanging on by its fingertips, in fourth place is the Comet Racing Honda. With every car that goes past, that one's going to fall down the order all the more. New name at the top of the charts, 1 minute 41.3. That's a sensational lap from car number 18. That's the AWS Motorsport Porsche. Absolutely blew the rest into the weeds, and that was Kantasak Kusiri, one of the Thai drivers. He's showing that with Tanat Sathyanthirikul, who is a star in his own right. So that looks suddenly very, very strong for AWS Motorsport. To the good by 2 seconds. That is a massive margin. It will come down, but that was Kantasak Kusiri absolutely tucking it out there and showing what can be done. That was not a case of building up to it quickly. It was just going for it completely. It wasn't like keep a bit in store for the second flying lap. Still 3 more runners. We've got 13 flying laps on the board. 3 more runners to come through and put a sensible time on the board. But 1 minute 43.375. And the second flying lap has suddenly had improvements, 2 improvements, because the D-Station Racing Mercedes 1 minute 41.7 seconds is now top of the charts. And Kantasak Kusiri was top, but is now has no time on the board because the time that gave it provisional pole was removed for, guess what, track limits. So best lap time removed. That sensational first flying lap for Kantasak Kusiri. But you know what? He's not hanging around on his second lap now because he's just banged in the fastest the fastest second sector, the fastest third sector. And if this is between the white lines, he should go back to the top. But at the moment, it's the D-Station Racing Aston Martin on top. From Prince Abdul Rahman Ibrahim. That's Jeffrey Ibrahim. His brother Abu Bakr has less experience, but is doing his utmost to get his brother in his sights. So 1 minute 41.7. Kantasak Kusiri gets his second flying lap, 1 minute 42.1. So he slots back, having lost that provisional pole time, which has yet to be bettered. His next best lap is good for third at the moment. And then suddenly change at the top, it's the BMW. We heard from Seiji Ara beforehand. It's his teammate Tomohide Yamaguchi who's fastest. The Plus Racing with BMW Team Studi, Bmw M4. But only by 44 thousandths of a second. And you know what? Who's fighting back? It's D-Station Racing. It's Satoshi Hoshino, the driver who's second fastest. Will his lap be good enough to go top? Yes, he will. He's now on top by 0.15 of a second. Top 3 cars covered by 0.4 of a second. At the moment, it's Aston Martin from BMW, third fastest Mercedes, and 18 the Porsche of Kantasak Kusiri, with that time taken away. Still good for 4th position at the moment, halfway through the session. And Yoshino's going not quite as fast as that, so maybe that was his best shot. He's top by 0.15 of a second. Let's see if that mark will stay, or will it be bettered? And who's well placed? Still waiting to see 2 of the crews get a flying lap on the board. Car 666 Bingo Racing, that's the Porsche Porsche Cup class car. That hasn't got a time on the board, but probably will in the next few moments. And Naoki Yokomizo, car number 27, Yogibo Racing Ferrari. We saw that was one of the last cars to get out of the pits, but just waiting to see. In fact, it's only on its out lap at the moment. We expect that one to move up. Quite a few other drivers having their times deleted. Car number 22 has had one of its times taken away. That's the Audi from Audi Sport Asia Team X-Works. Their time was deleted, and that means that David Pun is down in 9th place, and Triple Eight has had lap times removed. And the Triple Eight Mercedes at the moment is in the hands of Abu Bakr Ibrahim, Prince Abu Bakr Ibrahim. So again, they won't be the first, they won't be the last. Car number 8 has had times deleted now as well. That's EBM Giga Racing. And it really does hit them hard. Setiwan Santoso at the wheel of that. New time at the top, Takeshi Kimura. They weren't the first ones onto the circuit. It's Car Guy Racing Ferrari, top of the charts by half a second, nearly 6/10 of a second, but it's looking like a good lap from Kantasak Kusiri, who's moved up. He was first, had his time taken away, fell to 4th, he's now up to 2nd, and his lap was looking very good in the first sector, not quite so brilliant in the second sector. Can he recover? 6/10 of a second down on Takeshi Kimura. So Car Guy Racing, quick in the wet, quick in the dry as well. Still waiting to see what we can get when we get a lap time on the board from Naoki Yokomizo, car number 27, the Ferrari from Yogibo Racing. That's the mid-blue car with the yellow flash up over its bonnet and roofline. Kantasak Kusiri improves. He does improve on that lap. He's 2/10 of a second down now on Takeshi Kimura. It's still the 777, the Car Guy Racing Ferrari at the top of the table. Kantasak Kusiri 2/10 of a second down, and he's half a second clear of Satoshi Hoshino, the D-Station Racing Aston Martin. Takeshi Kimura pressing on. His first sector, no improvement. His second sector, no improvement. But let's see how consistent he is. His best, 1:40.7. Next lap around, 1:41.3. Well, all but drivers from 3rd place down, they'd all give their right arm to get a 1:41.3. So there's going to be any improvement from Kantasak Kusiri, who's in 2nd place at the moment. And again, you can see that the drivers get to a point on their tyres, then it gets harder and harder to make improvements. The driver might be getting more dialed in, more conversant with what it's like on the circuit, but the tyres not quite so willing to give after their sweetest motors taken. There's Team Uematsu, one of the McLarens in the race, one of the 720S McLarens, and already with McLaren they're reinventing the next run of cars. Their GT4 runner will be a new one next year. Artura. A lot of these manufacturers do a huge amount of testing before they bring a new model in. In fact, I was speaking to one of the drivers a few weekends ago down at Goodwood, and that was Rob Bell, who's been racing with McLaren for years and years. He was about to go and do a 30-hour consecutive test at Portimao. That just shows how hard. That's just the development of the car. Now, D-Station Racing Aston Martin in the pits at the moment, and Satoshi Hoshino has got out. He obviously feels his best time, 1:41.1, is 1:41.3. He was 3rd. I was going to say may keep him in 3rd, but it hasn't, because Naoki Yokomizo, we waited a long time for a flying lap to come in from the Yogibo Racing Ferrari, and Yokomizo's moved ahead of the Aston Martin into 3rd position. So it's the 777 Car Guy Racing Ferrari, top of the charts. Kantasak Kusiri, the number 18 AAS Motorsport Porsche in 2nd place. Another Ferrari now in 3rd place, and Hoshino in the D-Station Racing Aston Martin 4th. Car number 8, Porsche Setiwan Santoso. He had one of his best times taken away. So EBM Giga Racing will be, well, a little bit frustrated. The pace has been there, but if you don't deliver. And car number 7, who just had a lap time deleted for exceeding track limits. Yes, turn number 3, that's the one we highlighted earlier. Car 7 is the Comet Racing Honda NSX. So we talked about 8, we talked about 7, we talked about times being eliminated, taken away from them. That's probably why they're down in 14th and 15th positions of this 17-car qualifying session. Into the final 2 minutes. Hiroshi Hamaguchi up to 5th place and into the pits. 3 or 4 runners now aborting the rest of their session. They've decided they've done all they can. Naoki Yokomizo just recently up into 3rd place for Yogibo Racing. You can see he's very close to his best. 14 thousandths down in his first sector, 20 thousandths of a second down in his second sector. And his final sector improves by 0.16 of a second. That's why his Ferrari, Yogibo Racing, has gone into 2nd place. It's Ferrari from Ferrari at the top of the table, so he was just 46 thousandths of a second faster than the Porsche. The number 18 Porsche back down to 3rd place now. Will there be any further improvement from Naoki Yokomizo? 4 of the top 5 runners in the pit lane at the moment. The driver who isn't is Naoki Yokomizo. He's improved in sector 1. He's improved in sector 2. Stay between the white lines. He's got a target of just, if he can find 0.2 of a second, even slightly less, he could go top. It's the 777 Ferrari from the 27 Ferrari. Here's Kei Nakanishi down in 13th place, but we really want to see what Yokomizo can do if he can complete this lap any better. Improved in sector 1, 1 minute 40.865. He's 0.16 of a second down, and I think he may have just peaked. Wait to see if he can do anything in the final sector. A few other drivers you can see entering pit lane. Who else is making a move? Half of the top part of the field in the pit lane at the moment. This is the crew. Andrew McPherson. I'm saying we only have 1 Lamborghini this year, and it's not his. He's finally moved across to a Porsche. Both he and Ben Porter enjoying the experience of trying something new and something different. Andrew McPherson down in 16th place of the 17 runners, and the checkered flag is out. He can complete his lap time. And no improvement in the charge for pole position. It's Takeshi Kimura who takes that. 777, that's for Car Guy Racing, from the hard-charging Naoki Yokomizo, who was quite late out in the session, but moved his way up the chart bit by bit by bit, didn't have lap times taken away from him, and qualifies 2nd fastest. Of course, for all these crews, they know they've got a very short turnaround, and the second driver will go out in the 2nd qualifying session, but Takeshi Kimura has got a pole position in the bag, so it's not just Kei Cozzolino who can take poles for Car Guy Racing, but clearly that is the team on top of its craft with its Ferrari 488. But the margin was small, just 16 hundredths of a second between the fastest Ferrari and the 2nd fastest Ferrari. A lot of drivers left to rue the fact that they couldn't stay between the white lines and went out and had the very best lap times removed. Still a few cars who could cross the finish line one more time, but I think most of them are just going to park it in the pits. Of course, it's not all about them, because if they go on and just try and, well, we're kind of getting one more coming across the start-finish line. But it does give the teams less time to prepare for the sister car. Comet Racing was the first car onto the track with the Honda NSX, and is probably the last driver across the finish line. Doesn't quite improve its best time, but it was also about track mileage there for the number 7 crew, so that was Yusuke Yamasaki. Just getting a bit more time out on the circuit. But the driver who pushed so hard, Naoki Yokomizo, coming into the pit lane now for Yogibo Racing, gave it a good shot. In the end, was just 16 hundredths of a second off the pace of the sister Ferrari from Car Guy Racing. But the plaudits go to Takeshi Kimura. So, with the cars all parked in the shade of the pit lane, it's the turn for driver 1 to get out. And let's look at driver 1's qualifying times. Takeshi Kimura top by 16 hundredths of a second from fellow Ferrari driver Naoki Yokomizo. 3rd place, Kantasak Kasiri, just 0.2 of a second down. And he must be thinking how hard he was pushing and how he wasted his very best lap. But he was consistently quick, and a good teammate in Tanatsaki and Thirikul puts him in good position for this weekend. Satoshi Hoshino showed great form for D-Station Racing with their Aston Martin, and Hiroshi Hamaguchi in the only Lamborghini this weekend, just ahead of the Yamaguchi-driven BMW. So great spread of cars in the top handful of positions. In fact, if you look down, we've got 5 manufacturers in the top 6 positions, so good spread. The top Mercedes all the way down in 8th position, 8th and 9th for the 888 cars, but I think a few lap times are taken away for exceeding track limits. Oh dear, car number 60 is being reported for speeding in the pit lane. That's a bit of a no-no. That's the LM Corsa. Ferrari, it was Kei Nakanishi there, so that's certainly something you don't want on your curriculum vitae. That was a very impressive session, very, very close, and over 50, just only 15 minutes. It does mean any little transgression really hurts you quite a lot. So looking back, great mix of cars, and the BMW was one, flashing its lights. John impressed. BMW is the plus with BMW Team Studi, and BMW M4 Gt3s. They're definitely a car on the charge and becoming ever more popular, but it does seem the Ferrari still is a manufacturer that people want to race, even with the performance balancing, the balance of performance. It's still a car with a manufacturer with such prestige. In fact, 2 of them ended the session, first and second. This is the one that didn't. This is the third of the Ferraris, LM Corsa's version, that ended up rather further down the table. And Kei Nakanishi, there's also the question mark of speeding in the pit lane, which is being investigated. Both of the 888 Racing Mercedes showed very, very good early pace. Prince Jeffrey Ibrahim, championship leader, going great guns, but ended out towards the bottom half of the top 10. So a bit of head scratching here, but it looks so these weather conditions are set for the weekend. So if they've learned anything about the setup of the car, little changes can be made for qualifying session number 2, but eyes cast for session 1. The AWS Motorsports Porsche went very, very well indeed early on. Great pace coming out of that Kawasaki series, but one of many drivers who got best times taken away for going out mainly at turn 3. Turn 3, all 4 wheels going over the white lines on the outside, and your time is removed. The drivers were doing it a lot yesterday. They were all warned. Some still doing it, so they can't help it in many ways. BBM Giga Racing, Porsche, another one of the cars that got pinged, got its best times taken away for transgressing on the track limits rule. But it really was, in that first qualifying session, all about the pace of those 2 Ferraris at the top of the table. Car Guy Racing laid down the gauntlet. There it is, the 777 car, bright yellow. You cannot miss that anywhere it goes racing. And then they were sort of late out of the pits. Took a while to get going, but there's a new car this weekend after damage at Suzuka, and Yogibo Racing went faster and faster and faster, ended up just 1600ths of a second down. As Car Guy Racing, Takeshi Kimura took that pole position, but certainly Naoki Yokomitsu ran him very close indeed. Job done, smiles all round, fist bumps. So that was qualifying session number 1 for the GT3 runners, and session number 2 is coming up very, very soon indeed. You can already see cars at pit exit. Some of the crews decided to come in quite early to give a little bit more time to get any setup changes translated to the car. Tyre pressures are probably all you can really change in this short, quick turnaround. So the clouds are starting to blow through. We're going to maybe see the famous volcano in the background. Doors open, even though the cars are sitting in the shade. It's still a warm day, around 30 degrees here, maybe only 29. Nick Foster wanting the door kept open on his Mercedes. That's number 99. Big championship lead for him and Prince Jeffrey Ibrahim, his teammate. And the line of cars sitting beyond the heat haze, in the heat haze, if you will. So you've got the LM Corsa Ferrari at the front of the queue, the tucked in behind the ABSA Motorsport McLaren. Didn't see too much of that in the first session. Kei Cozzolino will be driving that in session number 2. And the BMW stuck in behind there. Et al, et al. Let's see them on the move as they come out onto the circuit. Sorry, it was the Lamborghini in third in the line. And Porsche Center Ozaki's Porsche, that really stands out. That sort of day-glowy orangey red livery. Right, this is the field. This is the field of cars coming to turn 3. This is the corner, the left-hander where drivers have been transgressing. You see more with a wider shot when they swing. If the camera swings around and shows the cars as they go through turn 3, they're turning left there. There, on the left-hand side of the screen. If you see the drivers going over the curbs on the left-hand side, that is where they're being picked up for track limits transgressions. Turns 4 and 5, nice and simple. Long right-hander. Into turn 6. Beautiful amphitheatre on the downside, the lower side of the paddock. Brilliant views out to the valley beyond, but down these steep banks you can see the cars. In fact, from the circuit restaurant, fabulous views of the lower part of the circuit. Kei Tosawa, the AWS Motorsport McLaren. Many titles. Asian Porsche champion 2011, 2016 GT class champion in Asian Le Mans series for Clearwater Racing. Long association with McLaren. Car Guy Racing, one GT3 pole in the bag, that's for this afternoon's race, but what can Kei Cozzolino do about pole for the second of the races, for the Sunday race? Does he want people to suddenly throw water on the track so he can drive like a god, as he did last weekend in really, really wet conditions? Kei knows this circuit so super well from all these years of racing here. And you can see the drivers trying their hardest to get some heat in their tyres, move it around. Lamborghini Huracan down the start-finish straight. Long straight, over the ridge, over the crest. And get the braking right for turn one. And the drop between turn in and exit is much bigger than it looks. The track flattens a little bit, then drops into turn two. Just see that on the right-hand side of the screen. Gradient change, it's what makes great circuits. Turn three, the head-on shot. And it's Mineki Akura showing that with Hiroshi Hamaguchi. Hiroshi's done his job. He's imparted the information across to his teammate. So, what is the quickest time going to be? The drivers have had... No, we've had all of them on their out lap, and now we're getting four of the field just moving on to their next lap, which of course is the first flying lap. I was impressed with how quickly the times came down. Slightly first got to set a flying lap in the first qualifying session with GT3. It was not one of the quicker ones. It was the Comet Racing Honda that ended up down towards the back of the pack, but it was the pace of the other drivers who really put in those quick times on their first flyer, their second flyer, and a few on their third or fourth, but largely the times came fairly early on. I'm just waiting to see. Would it be Car Guy Racing with Kei Cozzolino who puts in the first flying lap that stands the test of time? But, Wakisaka for LM Corsa, Shigekatsu Wakisaka. This will be the first flying lap. 1 minute 43.8. That's all right, but I'm expecting 1 minute 41 from the really quick crews coming through here. And the one to look for looks a bit as though Jasmine Jafar, Malaysian racer, 888 JMR, the 888 Mercedes ought to go properly to the top. It's Shigegatsu Wakisaka at the top. Car number 19. Just talked about that. Mineki Akura in the Lamborghini goes second fastest, but waiting for the quick drivers to come through. In fact, Jafar really had a very slow final sector. He was by far the quickest in sector 1 and sector 2, but a 1 minute 47.1. We'll see a lot more from that. I think you can shave 5 or 6 seconds out of that. Yasmin, I'm sure the pace is there, but still at the moment with 5 times on the boards. It's Shigegatsu Wakisaka, car number 60, the LM Corsa. That's the bright blue Ferrari with the Italian colours on the nose, the white, the green and the red flashes up the bonnet, over the roof of the car. That's fastest by 1.7 seconds. But you know what? Who's flying through sector 2? Who's going to go top? I think it might just be Kei Cozzolino, the 777 car racing Ferrari. There it is, sweeping onto the start-finish straight. Cautious using of the curbs there. 1 minute 43.8. This is going to be easily bettered, I'm sure. Waiting for Cozzolino to see what he can put on the board. Is it going to be in the 1 minute 41s? 1 minute 40.698. So he's only 3.1 seconds to the good. Wet or dry, doesn't matter for Kei. This is not just a great driver, but it's a great car from a great team that really seem to have got their setup very well sorted indeed. But yet, I feel there's a challenge coming from Jasmine Jafar. He backed out on his first flying lap in the final sector. His first sector and his second sector even faster than Cozzolino has managed so far. Sean Thong goes into third place. Number 22, the Audi Sport Asia team, X-Works Audi, and immediately gets bettered by the 19 Lamborghini. That's on its second flying lap. Akura goes in. I'm waiting for Jafar's lap to be completed. The target time, is it going to go into the low 1 minute 40s? No, 1 minute 40.5. Jafar does go to the top. The fight back from Cozzolino has already started. He's going to be completing his second flying lap any moment now. Oh, track limits, car 18. We saw that in the first session from the AAS Motorsport Porsche. And Tanat Satyan Tirikul has also had his best lap time taken away from him. Car number 30 suddenly into the mix. Yuta Kamamura for the Porsche Centre Izaki. That's the bright orange Porsche, goes into third position. He's in a low 1 minute 41, 1 minute 41.111, but the best time so far, 1 minute 40.5 seconds. Oh, Kei Cozzolino, fastest first sector of anybody. Not quite right there on his second sector, but just 16 thousandths down. So is this going to be enough to move him to top? I think he's going to topple Jasmine Jafar. 1 minute 40.532 to be beaten. Just waiting for confirmation of what's going to be achieved. No, he backs off. Oh, he's 1.3 seconds down in that final sector. But what he has in front of him is clear track. Teammate looks on from the pit garage. So it's Jasmine Jafar, top in the Mercedes, 888. Engineering, 888 is the number on the door. 777, 777, Kei Cozzolino in his Ferrari, second fastest. Yuta Kamimura in the Porsche, and ahead of another Porsche because Tanat Sathian car number 18 does another good flying lap. This one is not taken away from him. So it's Mercedes from Ferrari, Porsche. We can see where the second of the Mercedes is, and Nick Foster hasn't got a second flying lap, or hasn't got a first proper flying lap on the board, so he hasn't put a time up. Nor's Kei Tasawa, the number 16 AWS Motorsport McLaren, nor has, weaving on the start-finish straight. D-Station Racing, the 47, Tomonobu Fuji, driven Aston Martin, and neither has Yogibo Racing. They're hanging back like they did in the first session. Fujinami waiting to put a time on the board, but at the moment it's two cars out front, separated by 0.16 of a second. It's Jasmine Jafar. He's in the pit lane now, up onto the jacks. Are they going to throw more rubber at this? Certainly doing wheel changes. Fresh set of tyres. Maybe that's what Jasmine is going to need to be sure he can put this one out of reach, but it's super close with Car Guy Racing very much in the mix. Which other crews can show their hands? I really fancy a change, and we were waiting for Nick Foster. I couldn't even say the sentence, and it's happened. So we've got the two 888 Mercedes at the top. The Australian driver waited, and he slotted himself in just 0.09 of a second slower. And then Kei Cozzolino goes faster still and goes to the top. So it's Ferrari from Car Guy Racing. That's the 777. Ferrari just turning into turn one. The 888 Mercedes in the pit lane at the moment is second fastest by 0.75 of a second, and he's just a whisker faster than his sister car. That's Jasmine Jafar from Nick Foster. Yuta Kamimura in third place. Everybody seems to be going faster and faster. And still waiting for number 27, Yogibo Racing, to put a flying lap on the board. That's Kyoto Fujinami waiting for him to put in a time. This is a much more competitive session than session one. In many cases, the pro in a Pro-Am lineup is the driver at the wheel at the moment. But Kei Cozzolino is going faster still. Fastest first sector of anybody. This is a team on point, a driver on point, and importantly staying between the white lines. Car number 51 has just had its best lap eliminated. That's Ben Porter in the AMAC Motorsport Porsche. So his time, best time taken away. He's down in 13th position. Kei Cozzolino, faster than anybody in the first sector, improves on his best in the second sector. He could be going down as low as 1 minute 39.5, 1 minute 39.6 perhaps. His best so far, a 1 minute 39.7 session lap. Right, Jasmine Jafar is back onto the track. We've got 5 minutes and a handful of seconds remaining. Will the fresh rubber make as much difference as he's looking for? Who else is attacking? Number 5 suddenly in the mix. That's the BMW. Seijiara goes into 4th place. He poses Kamimura and Sathian Tirikul. I still fancy that Sathian Tirikul, number 18 Porsche from AWS Motorsport, to show its hand and go back up there. And then, very late to set a decent flying lap, is Tomonobu Fuji, who puts the Aston Martin from D-Station Racing. They're based just down the hillside into second position. He's 0.8 of a second down because Kei Cozzolino went faster still, 1 minute 39.6 seconds. Well, whatever the 888 Jasmine Jafar Mercedes crew think they're aiming at, they're putting the heat in the tyres, weaving around, trying to see what they can do. But that is a fantastic lap from Kei Cozzolino. But of course his tyres have had the best taken out of them, whereas Jasmine Jafar, seen on screen here in 888, is now getting heat into a fresh set, flashing lights from his teammate. Nick Foster just pulled up behind him. Nick's probably saying, get out of the way. I'm coming through on a flying lap, and look, that's good teammate work. Don't ruin my flying lap. You're on your out lap on your new rubber. Get you. So good use of the lights there, and well heated. Good use of the mirrors. Oh, I tell you why it was important that Foster had a clear run, because he's fastest of anybody in the second sector. He's improved in the first sector. If he finds a tenth of a second, he'll move up into second place again, because of course he was pushed back by Tomonobu Fuji in the Aston Martin from D-Station Racing. Through the final corner, turn 16, on to the start for the straight. How much can he improve? Because I tell you what, the target time, 1 minute 39.6 seconds. Teammate Jeffrey Ibrahim, we saw him fleetingly, Prince Jeffrey Ibrahim, watching on from the pits, and Foster goes into second place. He's still 7/10 of a second down. Car number 888, best lap times removed. That means Jasim Jafar on the new rubber. He only had one good flying lap before he came to change onto new rubber. He is lying in, how many cars on the track? 17. Where is he? Down in 17th position. So suddenly things quite serious, and certainly watching on Prince Abu Bakr Ibrahim will be thinking, come on, you've got to get this time on the board. Our best lap has been taken away. We are stone last. So it's Kei Cozzolino in the pits. He's 6/10 of a second clear of another improved lap from Tomonobu Fuji, who was second, fell to third as Nick Foster improved, but back up. There is Foster, now down to third position. So it's Ferrari from Aston Martin and Mercedes at 99 Mercedes. Well, was improved by a certain amount and then almost lost the equivalent, slightly more in the second part. But what can he do in the final sector of the lap? If he can find a tenth of a second, he could go back into provisional front row position, but at the moment, with 2 minutes, a few seconds on the board, Foster, championship leader by some margin with his teammate Prince Jeffrey Ibrahim, is in third position. Oh, pushing very nicely out of turn 16. Important thing is getting in that position where you can put the power down as early as you possibly can. Waiting to see what sort of time, not below 39, 1 minute 40.44, very close to his best, within a few thousandths of a second, but not quite good enough there. The middle sector really hurt. And who else is making the moves? Tomonobu Fuji was making the moves, he's second fastest. So we've got a run of drivers second, third and fourth. Fuji, Foster and Fujinami, with their surnames beginning with an F. Who else can make a move? 888 Jasim Jafar with that fresh rubber. The time had been taken away before. Dropped to 17th, his first lap on the fresh rubber, good for 6th place overall, but he's improving. Remember, he's 1.1 second down on the ultimate pace, but he's faster than he has been before in the first sector and the second sector. I think this time is going to be good enough for the 888 Mercedes to go back up into second position. It's not going to be enough, surely, to topple the 777 Ferrari from Cargo Racing from Kei Cozzolino. That's 6/10 of a second to the good. Just wait, the final sector, waiting for the 888 Mercedes to come out of that final corner. Half the field in the pit lane at the moment. Penultimate corner for Jasim Jafar. That's turn 15. 15's behind him, round the outside. I think that was the sister car, kept out of his way. This time that's Nick Foster returning the compliment. Sometimes you almost can't get out of the way. Oh, sorry, I declared a couple of corners earlier. That was out of turns 12 and 13. Now that's 14 into 15, into turn 16. Is it going to be good enough for Jasim Jafar? He's got to find 2/10 of a second to move ahead of Seiji Ara in the number 5 BMW. Target time, if he can get into a low 1 minute 40, he'll go into second position. If he can get into 39, he's got a chance of challenging. He's in a high 140. So Jasim Jafar stays in 6th position. However, the track is empty. He's still got time to play. The checkered flag is out. This final flying lap could be the one. Nick Foster reports into the pits. He's safe in third position, but his own teammate could topple him. The track almost to himself. Jasim Jafar, the 888 Mercedes, seeing what he can do. Number 22, Team X-Works Audi, one of the last cars out on the circuit. Sean Thong down in 10th position overall, not going to improve. Immediately after he crossed the line, he was almost toppled by number 60, which is Yarem Corsa Ferrari, with Waki Saka at the wheel. He improved but did not go past. It's all eyes really on the 888 Mercedes, Jasim Jafar. But he doesn't improve in the first sector. The new tyres haven't really worked for him, or maybe it's a change of scrub rubber that went on board. Comet Racing, Honda, last of the GT3 runners. Just the only other car behind him in the 17 car group is the GTC Porsche. of Bingo Racing. So let's see if there's any improvement. There may be a minor improvement. Doesn't quite come. Stays in 16th position overall. So happy down at the world of car guy racing. So the job has been very, very well done indeed. Kei Cozzolino, very happy indeed, along with Takeshi Kimura. Is there any change? Rumble of a Mercedes still being pushed very hard by Jasmine Jafar. But no improvement in Sector 1, no improvement in Sector 2. So that's 2 poles from 2. So it looked good. Very good indeed. Car guy racing at Suzuka, it looks better still. They only got 1 pole when they were at Suzuka. Fuji, they've now bagged 2. That makes it 3 poles from the last 3 sessions for them. So quite a few drivers will be rueing the fact their times have been deleted. Turn 15, the penultimate corner, is another one where track limits have been exceeded. And car number 8 was the latest one to fall foul of that. That was Reed Harker, driving the EBM Giga Racing Porsche. D-Station Racing showed good hand, second fastest for them. Car now in parc fermé conditions, the Aston Martin. Again, Tomonobu Fuji, Satoshi Hoshino, they've had some good sessions. Race all around the world for Aston Martin. Their team based just down the side slopes here, about 2 kilometres away from the circuit. But all looks pretty cool, calm and collected there. They came in early, realised they weren't going to find 2/3 of a second. So they weren't going to topple car guy racing, and they were able to just consolidate and just come out a fraction ahead. In fact, in the end, just 1/10 of a second faster than Nick Foster, who was good for 3rd overall in his Mercedes. So it stayed dry and the sun was shining on one team in particular. That was Car Guy Racing with their Ferrari. And Kei Cozzolino did precisely what his teammate Takeshi Kimura had done in session number 1. And he too took pole position. Look, 0.634 of a second. That is a big, big margin. Then the Aston Martin, Tomonobu Fuji doing a great job. Nick Foster, good for 3rd in his Mercedes from 888. And then Fujinami in the Yogibo Racing Ferrari, 4th place, just slightly ahead of the BMW from Seijiara, with Jasmine Jafar just not quite coming right for him, just a second down on the ultimate pace, but certainly, you know, sitting in a good championship position there. So the 888 Racing crew should be able to build on that. Then a whole gaggle of Porsches with Porsche Center Ozaki, AAS Motorsport, EBM Giga Racing down towards the tail of the top 10, which was completed by the Audi Sport Asia Team X-Works entry. 1.5 seconds down, a really competitive session, but Car Guy Racing looked pretty invincible in terms of qualifying form. So you see the parc fermé stickers, don't touch, the message is quite clear on the roof of the car. Driver getting out is Jasmine Jafar. Traffic actually was a little bit of a problem for him there, because when he came in, had that pit stop, the others went out, just did it all in one run. He came in and just got slightly blocked when he went back out, when his newer tyres might have yielded a little bit more for the Malaysian driver. So much to talk about when things are generally so close. If we remove the pole starting Ferrari Kei Cozzolino, everybody else very close indeed in the next gaggle of cars down to Jasmine. And in fact, you can also throw into that mix car number 30, the Porsche Center Ozaki entry as well. That's very competitive too, but certainly Car Guy Racing have got their nose in front. In session 1 they took pole, and in session 2 as well. EBM Giga Racing keen to get out onto the circuit. These are the highlights of qualifying session number 2. But it was LM Corsa with their Ferrari that led the field out, and then the McLaren from AWS Motorsport. Great mix of manufacturers, car number 19, the Lamborghini as well, the Mercedes, the Porsche, just showing how strong GT3 racing is around the world in terms of manufacturer interest. So, fine conditions, plenty of space out on the track. The 17 runners sharing the space, they should be able to run it without tripping over each other. And it was a case of dialing the car in, dialing the driver in, not exceeding track limits. Tyre change midway through the session for the 888 Mercedes could have been a masterstroke, but alas today it wasn't for them, because the Car Guy Racing Ferrari was on an absolute flyer. Jasmine Jafar gave it a good shot for 888 Race Engineering, but it was a case of the Ferraris bubbling their way to the top of the charts, and it stands out anywhere, not just in terms of its bright, lurid, acid yellow colour scheme, but the sheer pace of Car Guy Racing. Already Takeshi Kimura had taken pole for the Saturday afternoon race here at Fuji Speedway. But when defining the grid for Sunday's race, tomorrow's race, it was teammate Kei Cozzolino who was also dominant by some considerable margin. Triple O Mercedes, one of many that had a time taken away. Again, pushing very, very hard. That was Jasmine and Jafar coming through turn 16. Get the power down, accelerate down the start for the straight. The long start for the straight here at Fuji Speedway. Sister car driven by Nick Foster worked its way up to third place overall. Between them, the D-Station Racing, Aston Martin took second, but it was the Car Guy Racing entry from Kei Cozzolino, 777, that really had a masterclass here at Fuji Speedway. 0.634 of a second, better than the best of the rest, which was that D-Station Racing Aston Martin. But from Fuji back in second place down to the middle of the top 10, no, in fact down throughout the next 6 runners, very, very close indeed. But it was all about Car Guy Racing, and it was all about Kei Cozzolino. Another pole position in the bag, so job well done, and fingers all up there. Very happy indeed in the world of Car Guy Racing. So that is that. Qualifying is over for the GT4s and now for the GT3s. Do come and join us later for the first of the 2 races here at Fuji Speedway.